Welcome, everyone. We're really glad to have you here today to talk about the Certified Chamber Executive Program. We're happy to have here today our CCE Commission Chair, Matt McCormick, who's President of the Columbia Chamber of Commerce, and our Chair-elect, Norma Ritz Johnson, who is the Executive Vice President of the Lubbock Chamber of Commerce. Before we get started, I just have a few housekeeping reminders. First, attendees are in listen-only mode during the webinar to avoid background noise. But after the presentation, we'll have an opportunity to have questions, and you can ask your questions by typing them into the webinar panel, which is on the right-hand side of your screen. So don't hesitate to type in a question as soon as you think of it. We'll get to it right afterwards. So we welcome your questions. I have the presentation slides posted at the bottom right-hand corner under handouts. You can download those now, or I will send them to you with the webinar recording. And then finally, I have our intent to apply form also. If you're convinced at the end of this that now is the time to go for your CCE, you can download that form right away and send it off to me. And finally, the webinar is being recorded. I will send the webinar to all of you, and I will post it on the CCE page. And I'm not sure that I told you that my name is Susan McGuire. I'm Director of Professional Development, and I head up the CCE program along with our CCE commissioners. So with that, I am going to introduce our panelists. Matt McCormick, as I said, is the President and CEO of the Columbia, Missouri Chamber of Commerce, located in the heart of Missouri and home of the University of Missouri. Matt's been in the profession for 20 years, serving chambers in both Texas and Missouri, and he earned his CCE in 2012. So welcome, Matt. Norma Ritz Johnson is the Executive Vice President of the 5-star accredited Lubbock, Texas Chamber of Commerce in West Texas. Norma came to the Chamber 16 years ago with a previous background in associations and agribusiness. Norma earned her CCE in 2011, so welcome, Norma. So with that, I am going to pass the presentation on to Matt to get us started.
Sounds good. Thank you, Susan. And welcome to everybody. And so excited to have you on the call today. And let me be the first to echo what Susan said, and also to tell you congratulations. We look forward to working with you through this journey. And again, excited that you're here with us and walking through this. Susan, one of the things to make sure that you realize is you're going to see there's going to be a common factor as we go through this entire presentation, and that's going to be Susan. Susan is the go-to for everything and does a fabulous job working with all of us, and a fabulous job helping all of our CCEs out and our potential CCEs. So Susan, thank you for everything you do, and thanks for getting this all set up for us. So let's start off with why CCE, why go through the process and such. And there's a number of reasons. One is the network. And one of the things that we talk a lot about in our industry, as you know, is chambers are here to help our businesses build their network. Well, a program like CCE is for you, our chamber professional, to build your network. This is a group, this is our board, or the commission from, I think, last year or the year before. But it's a great picture, and I know I have called upon and reached out to every single one of these members of this group and a number of other CCEs across the nation for assistance and for help, and to bounce ideas and to bounce problems and challenges and opportunities off of. And so one of the great things that CCE does is it puts you a part of this network of fellow CCEs that are very innovative. And I think the next slide, one of the things that talks in there, and if you're old like me, you remember the movie Top Gun. This is the best of the best. This is what we consider the best of the best in our industry. And these are the people that we lean upon and we take a look at, and what are they doing in their chambers? What are they doing in their organizations, and how inventive they have been. This is the only national and international certification for chamber professionals. And we added in the international part, I think, this year, because we do have a number of international CCEs. We have a handful from Canada. We have the one that everybody wants to go visit on a regular basis is Wilpeno and Grand Cayman Islands. And so we do have a number of international CCEs, and so this is the only national and international recognized certification for our profession. Next slide. So the process. What should you know about the process? So what we've done is we have set up, and whenever I say we, Susan set up a top 10 list that we're going to go through with you today, and really try to answer all your questions as we go. But as Susan said, if you think of any questions that pop up while we're going through this, just put it in the chat. We're going to make sure that we address them before we get off the call today. So what do you need to know about the process? Let's start with number 10, and that's going to be first and foremost, that's going to be your eligibility. The eligibility for applying for your CCE process, for your CCE process is 6 years. Some non-chamber experience will count towards those 6 years, and so as you see here, there is it goes through a little bit more of the details. So senior level experience is required. You need to have experience in program or project management, budget management, personnel supervision, and direct contact with the board of directors. And you must be currently employed by a chamber in a senior position. As I said before, some outside chamber experience does count and can count towards your 6 years, so up to 4 years in a relevant senior level experience in other non-chamber positions. But your most recent 2 years must be with your chamber. So for instance, if you have been a part of an association, let's use that. You heard Norma talk about her previous life before chamber was in the association arena. If you've been in an association in a senior level position and you have been in a chamber for the last 2 or 3 years, that your experience at that association can count towards the 6 years. One of the things, if you do have any questions, and this goes through all of it, if you have any questions, Susan is your go-to person. But make sure you touch base with her well before the application deadline, which is on January the 11th. Don't wait until January 10th at 4 o'clock in the afternoon to call and ask if the eligibility, if you're eligible for that. Make sure you're calling well in advance and work through that. Susan is a master of being able to work through that with you. And if you have any questions, we're happy to help also. But make sure you contact Susan well in advance. And Susan, I think we turn this over to you now for the application process, or if I missed anything in that.
All right, yeah, one more thing about the eligibility is, yeah, contact me if you would like non-chamber experience to count. I'll ask you to send us a resume so we can evaluate that closer, and I will share it with Matt and Norma to make that determination. So happy to do that, but do that before the application deadline. All right, so the application deadline is January 11th, 2021. And here is the complete timeline. We'll go over some of these other aspects of the process as well, but the application deadline is the first, and as you see, the whole process goes through June, mid to end of June, or actually beginning of June. So the application, I won't go into detail, but it's you can click. This is an active link that I uploaded into the chat. So you click on our CCE webpage, you'll find the application there, download it and fill it out. And then there's supporting documentation that's required as well. That's all listed at the end of the application. As we'll go into a little more detail, you need 175 points that you can get through contributions in the chamber field, education, awards, other certification, IOM, lots of other things. So the application steps you through that process. There's an application fee, a resume and references, and so on. So there's a link that you can use on our main CCE page. You can upload all of your information there on that link, and again, do that by January 11th. And now I'm going to pass it over to Norma to talk about the next requirement.
Thank you, Susan. I'm going to talk a little bit about the financial review and audit requirements. So the chambers of commerce of eligible CCE candidates must have financial reviews conducted by an outside financial certified financial firm for at least the past three most recent previous years before the candidate can apply. Chambers with revenue above $500,000 a year must conduct an annual review and then conduct an audit every other year. For chambers with revenue below $500,000, you have to have conducted an annual review by a certified financial firm and conduct an audit every 3 years. So what you're going to do is you're going to be submitting the 2 most recent financial reviews for the chamber that matches the schedule depending on whether your chamber has revenue under $500,000 a year or revenue above $500,000 a year. And if I didn't miss anything, Susan, I will turn it back over to you to talk about points.
Okay, so the next thing to remember is that you need to calculate your points. And as I mentioned briefly, you can get points from many places, ACC and other, your education, ACC conventions. The summit that we recently held is worth 5 points. Regional conferences and seminars, such as our upcoming events conference or past sales conferences, are 3 points. WACE conventions or conferences, institutes certainly. If you've attended institute, you get 7 points per year in the 4-year program, so 28 points if you have your IOM. And then you get points for leading or presenting at webinars, preparing articles for Chamber Executive Magazine or other Chamber Association magazines or publications. If you've been an ACCE mentor, that gets you points. And then a big one is if you've been on the board of community organizations or chamber associations, either on the board or in leadership position, ACC, state associations, community nonprofits, and so on. And then finally, awards and certifications. Other certifications, I believe, are 5 points each, and awards during your time as a chamber executive, 3 points each. So the best way to do that, to figure out where you are, is to download that application and just go through, start filling it out. It should automatically add up. And if you get to the point where you're close to 175, or if you're a little over or a little under, and you're interested, you have the other eligibility requirements, you're either ready to apply or you can give me a call. If you're just under, give me a call, send me a draft application. I'm happy to walk through it with you, see if you've missed any areas where you could get points, and see if we can get you to 175. But that's the basics. All right, now I'm going to pass it back to Norma to talk about your CCE project.
So this is a really fun part of the entire process, and that's identifying a good CCE project that is going to somewhat be the centerpiece of your process. So it's going to be in 2 different phases of the process, your project. First of all, it'll be the centerpiece of your CCE essay, and that essay is going to be over 2 pages, and it will be on your project. And then there will be an essay that you will submit at the same time that covers your chamber financial procedures. Those are going to be due February 12th of 2021, and they're each 2 pages long. The other time that your CCE project will be featured will be during the CCE presentation phase of the process. And you'll be presenting a 15-minute presentation on your project, as well as a 15-minute Q&A, which will then be followed by a 20 to 30-minute interview with members of the CCE Commission about Chamber of Commerce and the body of knowledge in general. And those interviews will be conducted March 24th, 2021, and that will be conducted virtually in 2021. In terms of a little bit more detail about the selection of your CCE project, it needs to be a recent, significant project of your chamber that had important community or organizational impact. It needs to demonstrate your professional skills, your experience, and your leadership ability. This is all about you. And so if you've ever been told, hey, this is not all about you, in this case, the project needs to be all about you insofar as you led the project, and your expertise and your professionalism is what contributed to the success of that project. You need to be comfortable writing, talking, answering, living, and breathing this particular project, because it will be your the first impression that you make with the CCE Commission members that will be part of the interview process. Just a couple of examples of projects, and I'll use Matt and my project as an example. My project in 2011 that I presented was a ballot measure petition effort that I coordinated here at the Lubbock Chamber to call a ballot measure having to do with legalizing alcohol sales in Lubbock County. And Matt's was the near complete overhaul of a Chamber of Commerce from the financial standpoint and the in all of the internal type workings of that chamber that made that chamber more successful than when he got there. And so you can see the difference there. Those were two very significant major projects, but one was internally focused and one was externally focused. And there are other examples of projects that we can share with you, or that Susan can share with you as well. And I will turn it back over to Matt to talk about mentors.
Yes, find a mentor or two. And what I usually add is 3 or 4. And for me, I know this was probably one of the biggest linchpins for me in being successful going through the process. Mentors are people, colleagues that have gone through it. They've walked through your shoes. They've walked in your shoes. They know what you're going through. A lot of times these are people that might be current or former commission members that are very intimately involved with the process and passionate about the process. But you rely on your mentor in a number of different ways, which is, as you see there, the list of reviewing your application, brainstorming about your project that Norma just talked about. What projects are good, what projects, how do you need to work through that process of your projects. Help with your presentation, exam preparation, and then also what has changed a little bit this year, but typically could be your exam proctor. They can help you find one maybe in your state or somebody that's local. With COVID, some of that process has changed, but that's what your mentors are there for. Again, they've walked through your shoes, they've gone through the process with you, and they're there to help you and want to make sure and see you successful. Some great CCE mentors, our colleagues from ACCE Institute or your state chamber association network. So just think about your network that you're a part of. If you've gone through Institute and you have your IOM, maybe take a look at some of those Institute partners that you've gotten to know through the years, and maybe some of those that have their CCEs. Ones that are maybe in your community or neighboring community or within your state. Recent CCE designees, those that we just awarded their CCE a couple weeks ago, and then also your current commission. We're all here to help. We want to see you succeed, and so we're all here to help you. The next slide has a number of names. So this is our 6 candidates from the class of 2020, which we were thrilled to celebrate, although we didn't get to celebrate maybe in the way that we usually get to, but we were thrilled to celebrate, and we will continue to celebrate these 6 because they stepped up during a very crazy time and still continued through their process. And I know any of these 6, gotten to talk to each one of them personally, and any of these 6 would be more than happy to help be a mentor. And then the next slide shows who our current commission is. And those are, I believe those are active links, are they not, Susan? Yeah, those are active links that you can directly email any of us and ask us questions about the process, ask us questions about your project, things like that, but also talk to them maybe about being your mentor, or if they know a mentor in your state or in your area. This is a great group to start with and to lean on. And with that, I think, unless I missed some, I'm going to kick this back over to Susan.
Okay. All right. So the next thing to remember is, and this is particularly important as you get to the part of the process where you're studying for the exam, is to prepare by doing the recommended reading and focusing on our body of knowledge. So the recommended reading can be found, again, from a link on our main ACCE CCE page. And there's a collection of books and articles in that list of recommended reading. Some are ACCE publications that you can just download. are books that you may have to purchase or borrow. You can reach out to the last class to borrow their books if you would prefer not to buy them. But in any event, it's just a sort of a curated list of resources that we found to be really helpful in some of the areas that are the most challenging for some folks, including financial areas. So recommended reading, highly recommend that you download that, you get those books, and that you start preparing that way. And then the second thing to do is just to take a look at our body of knowledge. This is a list of the skills and competencies that we at ACCE and the CCE Commission believe are required for experienced, future-forward chamber leaders. And we continually review and revise this. It was just most recently revised in 2019. And if you dig down into some of these major categories here, they'll list specific skills that we believe are necessary for good, solid chamber leadership, and that are tested throughout the process, either in the exam or within other parts of the process. And if you get to a certain area that you're just not as familiar with as another, I recommend you just drill down into that area by taking a look at our Ask ACCE information resources. My colleague Jen Pack is our manager of Ask ACCE, and she'd be happy to work with you on finding resources to get you smarter on what you need to get smarter on for the CCE exam. And there's also, there's many links and information and resources in our library. So that's sort of the universe of things that you may be tested on. So definitely take a look at that. Look at the areas that you may be weakest on. Look at the recommended reading, and of course, as Matt said, work with your mentor as well. So let's see where we, Matt, back to you.
Devote some time to the process. I know sometimes whenever we're putting this top 10 list at you, the first thought that might come to your head is like, oh my gosh, this is a lot. And it is a process, but the most important time is devoting time to it. You can do this. Trust yourself, trust your experience, and also work with other CCEs, work with your mentors, leaning on your mentors. One of the things that Susan's done so well with is setting up class calls throughout the process. And each one of those class calls starts taking on the next section of it. So don't try to bite off the whole thing, but take it section by section by section, and you'll be successful with it. One of the things I know that helped me whenever I was going through the process, and I've heard, and I got this from a number of my mentors and a number of other people, is I set up time every week to sit down, and whenever I was to the reading part, to sit down and read and study. I think what I did was I sat down every Wednesday. I took every Wednesday from like 2 to 5 in the afternoon, and that was my time that I would sit and study. I'd either do it at the office, or I might go home and at my home office and work there. But I worked with my staff, my chamber staff, so that they knew I would be out from those times. My board, they knew I'd be out there in those times studying for this process. And you develop a schedule that works for you, and develop a schedule that helps you take it one step at a time. You're good at what you do. You are a chamber professional, and you trust yourself, trust your experiences to help you through the process, but also on top of trusting yourself, lean on those resources, devote the time, make sure you're on the class calls, working with Susan, making sure if you have any questions, they're being answered. So that's just some advice around making sure that you devote the time. Susan?
Okay. All right. Well, then the next step, almost the last step, is to maintain your certification. So this would be after you have gotten your CCE. Your CCE is good for 5 years. So in the fall, so we'll give the CCEs out in July. We'll invoice for you for your final designation fee in August, and then you're good for 5 years. And during that 5 years, you need to accumulate at least 15 of those professional development points to remain current, and we'll invoice you in 5 years for your renewal fee, which is listed below. So you submit your points, your point sheet, and you renew every 5 years. And then finally, have questions or need a plan, please contact us. We would love to help you. Here's my email address, and we also have our CCE page. Again, if you have questions about the process in any way, or you've, as I said, if you've started your application, you're stuck, you have a question, you're almost have enough points but not quite, or if you know if this is not the year but you'd like to work out a plan for getting the necessary points, I'm happy to work with you on that as well. So don't hesitate to reach out. So are you in? If you are, we would love for you to let us know. The intent to apply form helps us plan for the class. If you have decided that you'd like to apply, you can fill this out. Again, it's uploaded to the webinar panel. Send it to me, then we'll make sure that we're getting prepared with the resources and staffing that we need to make sure that that you have a successful CCE process. This form is also on our website. It'll be in the resources I sent you, and so on. So with that, we have some time for questions, and I'm going to see if we have any questions here. It looks like I may have one. How long are points good for? In general, points are, it's your entire career. So I believe the awards, which are 3 points, I think they have to be awarded during your time as a chamber executive. But otherwise, they're good for all time. Would you recommend getting an IOM prior to CCE? I'm going to throw that to Matt to opine on that. It's certainly always a great thing to have.
Yeah, that's a great question, and I wouldn't be doing my due diligence as a board of trustee member for the Institute program if I said no. But it's not necessary. You can do your CCE, but I will say from experience, and Norma, feel free to jump in here as well. From experience, the IOM process helped me in so many ways to prepare me for the CCE process. And so my encouragement, if CCE is where you want to go, fantastic. Let's help you out with that. But if you're trying to decide between the two or looking at them, my thought pattern is that the IOM process really does help prepare you for the CCE process, because they're interlinked in so many ways around the body of knowledge. Although one's through the U.S. Chamber, one's through ACCE and ACCE's body of knowledge for the CCE process. But the body of knowledge interlinks so much with the Institute process as well. I know the curriculum, I have the pleasure of also being on the curriculum committee for IOM, and that's one of the things that we discuss going through that is what is CCE's body of knowledge, making sure that we're being helpful on continuing you down that path of success.
I would have to completely agree with that. It really lays a nice foundation for then delving deeper into that body of knowledge that's the center of this process. And the other part of it is the IOM process, you make such great contacts and build such a great network. You may find yourself with one of the contacts, somebody from your class or from your Institute site in your CCE class. And of course, we all know that those relationships mean a lot when you're going through a process like this.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, well, thank you guys. I will say that if you're at a point in your career where you're not going to get your IOM and that's just not, but you want your CCE, go for it.
Yeah, exactly.
We have plenty of CCEs without IOMs. It's a terrific program, but if that's just not in the cards for you, but you do want to get your CCE, totally possible.
Exactly. It's not a must, and it is definitely possible without a doubt.
Yeah, absolutely. There was I believe a follow-up question, any indication when IOM on your resume? I'm not sure. It doesn't matter. Even if you got your IOM many years ago, it's still good. So those points, there's a different calculation of points depending on if you were in a previous program. Was it 6 years? Matt?
Yeah, 6 years.
Yeah. So you calculate the points a little bit differently, but it's, I think either it's 28 for the 4-year program. It may be 30 for the 6-year program. I think it's
5 points a year for the 6-year program.
Yeah. But yeah, even if you got it years ago, it's still good. How many different publications and or books make up the required reading? There are about 10-ish, 6 to 10, something like that. As I said, that link in the presentation slide, you can click right on that and get right to the books. If you have problems or troubles locating the books or finding them, I believe we have Amazon links, but if you have issues, let me know. But there's about 10 books.
And if you don't mind, Susan, I'll jump in there. You know, as Susan said, you can always borrow books. You can do things, you know, there's different ways financially if you need help with the books. I will tell you, I went ahead and purchased the books, and this wrong side, this credenza behind me still has my books in it, and I use them as they're great reference points as you walk through your career. And I've used them many a times since my CCE to go back and look things up and pull up information, or give to my staff members and my team members about, hey, take a look at this or read this and things like that. So a great resource even past the CCE process.
I agree. I have mine right there.
Yep.
And I'm not a chamber executive, but yeah, they're great. All right, I think that's all the questions we have right now. I don't see anything else in the question box. If you all have any more questions, again, don't hesitate to reach out. We really appreciate you being with us today. And Norma and Matt, thank you so much for leading this presentation and for all of your work in really leading our profession and the CCE process in particular. So I'm gonna, oops, I see one more question here. Oh, great info. Thank you very much. The slides and the recording and some other resources will be sent to you tomorrow after this webinar. And we really wish you luck. We hope you'll consider the CCE this year. If not this year, next year, you start, you know, making a path to getting that done. We believe it's so important to lift up our profession and to, especially in these difficult times, we need CCEs more than ever. So that is it. I'm wishing you all a wonderful rest of the day, and we will see you on our next ACC webinar.